Hi guys. I know we were supposed to do this live stream at 12 in the night, um, but it's Saturday night and most people don't remain online on the Saturday nights. I saw it last day also, last Saturday. So I hope someone joins. I'm not sure if anyone will, but I'll continue to discuss flawed narratives, the paper by Dr. Meenakshi Jain, refuting all the claims made by Dr. Satish Chandra in the book he wrote for the NCRT history syllabus, CBSE history syllabus, which was reinstated after Meenakshi Jain's book got kicked out. Meenakshi Jain's book was installed when Atal Bihari Vajpayee came to power. Then courts got involved. All the Marxist historians protested that saffronization ho raha hai, and then Satish Chandra's book got reinstated, and she did a rebuttal, wrote an entire paper, and point by point, exhaustive नहीं है, but overall rough estimate है कि क्या क्या गोलमाल है वो पुस्तक में. Okay, lots of people came online already. Okay, I'm happy with this. Oh, yeah. করপাত্র চিন্তনটা কেমন লাগলো? এখনো হয়নি, ওই অবধি পৌঁছোই আগে. By the way, guys, an audience member, Abhi Nag, had donated the money for the history of Indian philosophy. Those 3 books you can see, those 3 are that they arrived today. We will start that either tomorrow or Monday maybe, and I'm trying my best to shift the live stream to 8 to 10:30 in that time slot. You guys will be online at that time also, right? By the way, 2 or 3 funny news happened today. Bengal Trinamool Congress rejuvenated the Bengal Congress. You guys must have seen, since all of you are from Bengal, you all probably know it already. If the non-Bengali out of Bengal people are watching this, know this, that the Indian National Congress has gotten a rebirth because of Mamata Banerjee today. She arrested an absolute nobody from an absolute nobody of a party for absolute no reason. Then her spokesperson mysteriously comes out and protests this arrest, okay? And for those of you who don't know, Congress won a seat in the recent elections day before yesterday at a place called Shagordighi, which used to be a Congress stronghold, is a Muslim majority area, became a Trinamool stronghold. This time around, they again shifted back to Congress. So Trinamool thinks this is a great way to prop up Congress, to discourage BJP, because she realizes, oh dear God, wait, my webcam got screwed. So she realizes, Mamata Banerjee realizes that that there's a lot of discontentment among a lot of Hindus regarding BJP. She is trying to capitalize on this by propping Congress up. So I think that line of thinking that no, we don't need BJP. Any party who will do anything remotely good or will stand up to BJP and take the fight further, we will support them. There's a lot of Bengalis thinking that way, a lot of kind of right-winger Bengalis as well. I think that needs to stop as of now, because Congress is getting propped up by Trinamool themselves, and they are going to make that BJP 77 Lok Sabha seats to 40 or 30 now, if this goes on. Also, the Indian Christian comedian, Anglo-Indian or Indian Christian, I don't know, I think Anglo-Indian, Daniel Fernandez, the Sanjay Dixit posted, Jaipur Dialogues posted their story, and that's how I came to know of it. He has made some absolute insane jokes about the current politics of India, which I realized it was his plan to create this controversy, because nobody knew his name. I think he had a very small fan following. Okay, now I'm saying small. Someone will maybe show me that he had 20,000, 30,000 followers, but he was not common knowledge. Okay, he's not a household name like Kunal Kamra, etc. So, but today I came to know his name, and my mom watches a lot of comedy. Even through her, I've never heard his name. So he knew that he'll get this huge footage because of this controversy he created with absolutely pretty disheartening and depressing stuff he mentioned. You can check out his jokes on Instagram. And his comment section, he's getting pretty much screwed. There's no support for him. Everyone's demolishing him in the comment sections. And check out his joke on rice bag Christians. Why not to call him rice bag? He's very sad about that. And another one is about the oxygen cylinders during COVID. There was a shortage of that. Because yes, no one keeps oxygen cylinders back up for an imaginary disease, obviously. So he says that why will you get oxygen cylinders? You have chai. You voted for chai wala. So drink chai. Oxygen leke kya karoge? That's the tone of his jokes. So this made me realize that everyone has realized 2024 के पहले जो करना है कर लेना होगा. अभी जो कुछ भी मांगो, कोई भी अरेस्ट करो, बहुत कंट्रोवर्सी हो जाएगा. Even Daniel Fernandez knows this now, that the entire world's eyes are on him and BJP and Narendra Modi and India. If now someone arrests Daniel Fernandez, all hell's going to break loose. All hell's going to break loose anyway before 2024. Court, okay, Supreme Court, BBC, Soros, Adani पे अटैक, ऑक्सफैम का जो आदमी अदानी को टारगेट कर रहा था वही अब इन्वेस्टिगेट करेगा. नाउ हियर Daniel Fernandez also jumping into the queue. That made me realize that I think Hindus also have a chance of getting some shit done. I think this is the year we can easily get to free our temples, because Narendra Modi has himself shown us the template how we can get anything done in the country. I think from today onwards, by the 2024 elections, we have a great and absolutely beautiful test for BJP's dedication to not just India but specifically for the central ethos, the dharmic ethos of the country as well. You just need to block any national highway from now till the 2024 elections until Hindu temples are freed, and they will be freed. I guarantee you. This is the way to do it. And हर घर में शिवाजी चाहिए, अपने घर में नहीं. ये तो this is the truth of life. It can't happen. तो एटलीस्ट हर घर में जैसा दीपक हो, उस होप से हम ये लाइव स्ट्रीम करेंगे. Ifin, he's saying, dude, I got news for everyone. Kangla Pakko head Gorgo has Bangladeshi mullah in-laws. Nice. No wonder. Okay, but my in-laws are commie. My in-laws, I mean, my will-be in-laws will be commie. So we are not all same. Okay, let's start the Meenakshi Jain paper now. But remember, guys, if you want to free your temples, if you want to free our Hindu temples, just block whatever national highway is closest to your house. Sit there, don't get up, get ready for a bit of a lathi charge and a bit of water cannon, and you will get your free Hindu temple devoid of any government intervention by 2024. We know the drill now. Okay. We finished the introduction part yesterday, didn't we? Oh no, I'm sorry. We finished up to page 20. Nice. Just a few pages left. We'll do this today. Yeah, we had covered a lot of it, because last few pages will be citations. Yeah, we were supposed to start from here. थोड़ा zoom in कर लेते. Yes, यहाँ से start होगा. So this is the section where we are ekdam point by point. Dr. Meenakshi Jain is refuting whatever Satish Chandra wrote in the book for kids, and I need to make a pretty funny mistake I did while discussing this paper. In the beginning, wait, I can't see the chats. I'll just keep my. In the beginning, when Meenakshi Jain was suggesting that Satish Chandra should have mentioned that all these Islamic kings were behaving just the way their religion recommends and the founder of their religion recommends. And I said that no, class 11 के बच्चों के लिए ये थोड़ा ज़्यादा है. Let's not go there. Just let them know that that some Islamic invaders were bad. There were people like Darashiko as well. Because there will be some Muslim students in the class as well. So why give them so much guilt? Because after all, we need patriotic and self-respecting Indians. So among them, we'll always have Muslims and Christians as well. So what's the point in having a Muslim patriot who learns the right history, but he doesn't have any self-confidence because he thinks he has come from an absolutely disgusting background or something. Then I got proved hilariously wrong when about 5 pages later, Satish Chandra starts doing the same thing to Hindus. In the medieval histories, he has almost done everything to only talk about and glorify Islamic invaders and kings. Suddenly goes on to talk about caste and what are the flaws in the Hindu texts. Any bad act done by a person who happens to be a Hindu is pinned by Satish Chandra on Hinduism itself. But any bad act of Islamic kings is not only not pinned on their religion, is not even mentioned at all. So this is why you see modernists or a bit of rationalists have absolutely almost no place in today's politics, because anyone who tries to be reasonable with these fuckers, they will be proven wrong, and we will always need people like Deepak and who's a tiger guy in Hyderabad. Though these are the only people who can handle these people, unfortunately. Okay. Okay, Afin is saying nope, he has a cousin sister. Okay, even Rammohan would never have thought that Bengali would be ready to get Persianized again. Oh, Rammohan should have understood that this is what his policies are going to get us to. What did he think of the other side? No. See, we didn't know about the other side properly because we were brought up in an absolutely stupid education system. Rammohan Roy saw these things from his eyes. We can't forgive Rammohan Roy for not understanding the other side. Okay, this is not 1000 AD, this is not 800 AD, जबकि हिंदू राजाओं को समझ में ही नहीं आ रहा था कि अच्छा इन लोगों में प्रॉब्लम है, अच्छा इन लोगों का रिलीजन ऐसा है. We have Aurobindo, we have people who are understanding the problem. We had छत्रपति शिवाजी महाराज जिसको प्रॉब्लम समझ में आ गया था. उस वक्त भी राजा राममोहन रॉय आके बोल रहे हैं हाँ हिंदू ही है चारों ओर, हिंदुओं को डिसआर्म कर दो. संस्कृत सीख के क्या होगा, इंग्लिश सीखो, बाकियों को कुछ नहीं करना है, बाकी मदरसा में पढ़े, अपना घर ठीक रखे. Yeah, the tiger guy is T. Raja Singh. Yes. So apparently there's no place for people like Kushal, Mehra, Abhijit, Iyer, Mitra, or even me. I am much more on the right than those people. Even I'm being reasonable and saying that people should not be pinning the faults of Islamic kings on the religion, and Satish Chandra is doing the same thing to Hindus. So now we will start the paper. ये हो गया, मत्स्य पुराण को थोड़ा गाली वाली दे दिया. Okay, this part really pissed me off, so I'll read this again. ये वैदिक श्लोक का जो मंत्र है उसको मैजिकल स्पेल वेल क्या बोल दिया. ये बॉक्स में टेक्स्ट है, यू गाइस वर लॉर्ड हियर यस्टरडे. तो ये बॉक्स में टेक्स्ट है और उसके बाद मीनाक्षी जैन जी का रिफ्यूटेशन है. ओके, लेट मी जस्ट turn on the comment section from here. Okay, I'll check it later. Phone में charge नहीं है अभी. The belief grew among Hindus that a worshipper could attain what he desired by uttering magical words, mantra, and making various kinds of mystic gestures. They also believed that by these practices and by various kinds of austerities and secret rites, they could attain supernatural powers, such as the power to fly in the air, to become immortal or invisible, to see things at a distance, etc. Man has always yearned for control over nature in this manner. It is only with the growth of modern science that many of these yearnings have been fulfilled. Many Hindu yogis also adopted these practices. Meenakshi Jain says, typical of Marxist alienation from the spiritual ethos of this land. This sentence is so apt. I did not notice the gravity of this particular sentence. See, the alienation of the students, the forced alienation of the students being done by Marxists from the spiritual ethos of the land. This is exactly what was started by Rajaram Mohan Roy. Uttering magical words, mantra, is a venerable tradition dating to Vedic times. The caricature of the beliefs and practices of Hindus is a constant refrain in Marxist writings. Okay, अब देखो Jainism कैसे खराब हो गया. Now a Jain history professor is going to refute. In course of time, Satish Chandra says, the growing rigidity of Jainism and loss of royal patronage led to the decline of Jainism. The revival and expansion of Hinduism took many forms. Shiva and Vishnu became the chief gods and magnificent temples were built to proclaim their supremacy. In the process, many local gods and goddesses, including gods and goddesses of tribals who became Hinduized, became subordinate to their consorts. अच्छा, पहली बात तो subordinate नहीं हुआ. दूसरी बात है, even if they are subordinate and getting accommodated and accumulated in the superstructure, what's the problem? The so-called Aryans or Vedic people are not coming here and saying that ये क्या भगवान है, हटाओ इसको, हटाओ, रुद्रा को वर्शिप करो. ये लोग बोल रहे हैं कि अच्छा तुम्हारा गॉड का ये कैरेक्टरिस्टिक्स है, शिवा ऐसा कुछ नाम है ना, ये सब कैरेक्टरिस्टिक हमारे रुद्रा में डाल देते हैं, चलो हम सब एक साथ रहेंगे. That is at least the Marxist view. I'm drawing a pro-Hindu conclusion from a Marxist view. Properly right-wing view तो है ये कि रुद्रा भी यहाँ ही तो तैयार हुआ था, अभी कहानी थोड़ा मॉडिफाई होके शिवा बन गया था. मैं तो मार्क्सिस्ट का ही आंसर लेके मार्क्सिस्ट को ही डिबेट कर रहा हूँ. तो इसमें प्रॉब्लम क्या है? इन ईस्टर्न इंडिया द कॉन्सर्ट्स तारा, द कॉन्सर्ट ऑफ बुद्धा, दुर्गा, द कॉन्सर्ट ऑफ शिवा, Kali, etc., became themselves the chief object of worship. Nevertheless, the rise of the worship of Shiva and Vishnu signified the growth of a process of cultural synthesis. Thus, in an era of disintegration, religion played a positive part. अच्छा, एक compliment दे दिया. But the religious, अब देखो मजा. But the religious revival also increased the power and arrogance of the Brahmanas. This is what we were discussing yesterday. Correlation is not equal to causality. दोनों चीज एक साथ हुआ, इसका मतलब ये नहीं है कि एक के वजह से दूसरा हुआ. ठीक है, religious revival did increase, religion played a positive part, but ये religion का revival के वजह से ब्राह्मण का arrogance बढ़ गया ऐसा नहीं है. उसका कोई प्रमाण नहीं है, ये उनका conclusion है, ये fact नहीं है. So it can be interpreted in many ways. I'm saying that arrogance is not, Brahmins are not supposed to be arrogant. Brahmins are supposed to be humble. And the arrogance of Brahmins, which took an evil shape, was done by evil people. So I'm saying that the evil characteristic of the people is Satish Chandra saying that just because the religious revival happened, that's why these people became more evil. That is a far stretch. That's not backed by anything, that claim. This resulted in a series of popular movements like Bhakti movement, which emphasized the element of human equality and freedom, which had Brahmins in that movement. Okay, so Meenakshi Jain refutes the growing rigidity of Jainism. The so-called growing rigidity is difficult to substantiate and forms part of the Marxist calumny to associate rigidity with Indic traditions, because they have to equate everything, just like in Europe. क्योंकि वहाँ rigidity था, उनको भी बताना है कि यहाँ भी religion रिजिड था, क्योंकि आफ्टर ऑल नॉन रिजिड एक चीज है दुनिया में, वो है मार्क्सिज्म, बाकी सब रिजिड है चारों ओर. Again, Shiva and Vishnu in their high Hindu form so called were not the only gods instated in the magnificent temples built in these times. It was often local and tribal gods and goddesses who were the chief deities. Nor were they so called subordinate to their consort of Buddha or Durga, as evident for example at the Meenakshi temple. Okay. Next point by Satish Chandra. Meanwhile, the breakup of the Gurjara Pratihara Empire led to a phase of political uncertainty in North India. Okay, Gurjara Pratihara Empire खत्म हो गया, इसलिए sab khatam, and a new phase of struggle for domination began. As a result, little attention was paid to the emergence of an aggressive, expansionist Turkish state on the northwestern border of India. अच्छा, at least aggressive बोला है, expansionist बोला है. ये दो criticism kind of हल्के से दिया है. Meenakshi Jain is saying, the frontier states of Al-Hind, Sindh, Kabul, Zabul resisted the Arab and Turkish invaders for almost 4 centuries. ठीक है, 4 centuries का ये जो रेजिस्टेंस है, इसको बोल दिया कि वो गुर्जर प्रतिहार डायनेस्टी खत्म हो गया, उसके बाद इस्लाम चला आया एकदम डायरेक्टली. 400 ईयर्स में किसने किसने रेजिस्ट किया, कौन हारा कौन जीता, खिड़की में से कोई नहीं देखा. ठीक है, प्रेडिक्टेबली दिस resistance finds little mention. This resistance finds little mention in the text. Sindh held out for over 7 decades. 70 का सिर्फ अकेला सिंध ही रोक दिया. The Turk Shahi and later Hindu Shahi dynasties offered a similar fight in Kabul and Zabul. The Rajput states of North India frequently combined against the invaders. Combined against the invaders. This is important. These are the initial seeds or germs of the thought that yes, we Hindus need to unite. This had started back then. क्योंकि इंडिया नहीं था, हिंदुइज्म नहीं था, ये लोग कंबाइन किस बेसिस पे हो रहे थे? हाँ, A Rajput confederacy aided both Jaipal and Anandpal. The Chandelas, Paramaras, Chahmanas, Kalachuris and Chalukyas all consistently confronted the invaders. Why weren't these people invading other people, and why were they preventing? Why were mysteriously all Hindu people preventing Islamic invasions? So they did have the sense of the Hindu identity of the land, and that Islam was not entirely a part of it, and that's why they were preventing all this and often combining their strengths. So this is the beginning of Hindu unity, which Marxists claim never existed. Okay, let me read the comments from here. Let me have a sip of coffee. I didn't sleep today. I usually get up at 10 or 11, then I sit down for live stream. Today I didn't sleep. That's why I'm doing the live right now. I'll try to do it every day at this time only. Okay, Nina is saying all religions will change their traditions a lot in the coming years. I think whether Hinduism survives or not depends on how Hindus choose to look at their religion in future. AFN is saying no, people will choose their religion. Their religion is fixed to a book, so the identity, unless they get rid of after a few generations, that will again be back. This is what has already happened in वो एक problem है कि कोई अगर हटा भी देता है बड़ा प्रोग्रेसिव बन के, फिर कोई ना किसी को लगेगा कि no, let's do a reform and get back to the basics. That's what happened even in Islam, right? Sayyid Ahmed Sirindi, Barelvi, these people were angry with the later Mughal kings that क्या कर रहा है ये, कैसा Islamic life जी रहा है, proper Muslim बनो. Sayyid Ahmed Khan's mantra. Sayyid Ahmed Khan's suggestion was also that be as Muslim as possible but learn English. Bureaucracy में जाओ, काम करो, power लो हाथ में, पैसा बनाओ. Okay, Uttishta Bharata is saying, Dada, Rammohan was bad. Still broken clocks show correct time sometime. Yeah. His response to missionaries criticizing our text by criticizing Trinity is good. Maybe wanted Hindu approval. Yeah, but he converted to Christianity, wanted a global religion that's kind of like Christianity. ये सब बहुत irritating and problematic है. The book is Brahmanical magazine. Abhay is saying stop infiltration from Bangladesh, modernize Muslim society, tighter FCR regulations to stop C conversion. Abhay, ये जो तीन suggestion है, I think the first two are impossible. Stop infiltration from Bangladesh, it's impossible in India. इतना पोरस बॉर्डर है, क्या करोगे? हर पेड़ के ऊपर स्नाइपर बिठा के रखोगे? It can't happen. Deportation is the way to go. Let them come in, catch them anywhere, if without IDs, then send them back. रोक नहीं पाओगे किसी को यहाँ पे. हमारा एटलीस्ट देखो, यूएसए और मेक्सिको के बॉर्डर में एटलीस्ट एक रिवर है, वो रिवर तैर के ही पूरा का पूरा मेक्सिको यूएसए में घुस रहा है. हमारा रिवर भी है और पहाड़ तो खुला है, तो कौन कहाँ रोकेगा? तो उत्कृष्ट भारत एंड मॉडर्नाइज मुस्लिम सोसाइटी नहीं चाहेगा तो कभी भी मॉडर्नाइज होगा नहीं, और उनका मॉडर्नाइज होके भी क्या उखाड़ लेगा, वो तो हम देख रहे हैं। मॉडर्नाइज होके भी तो वो बोलेगा कि हाँ नुपुर शर्मा ने गलत बोला। और टाइटर FCRA रेगुलेशंस टू स्टॉप सी कन्वर्ट, हाँ ये हो सकता है। उत्कृष्ट भारत सिंह आर्काइव আছে कलेक्टेड वर्क से पाবে। You guys read so much man, it's so great. Why don't all of you have YouTube channels? That's what I hope you all will do. Okay, now the next point by Satish Chandra. Mahmud of Ghazni. Mahmud's raids into India alternated with battles in Central Asia. For his plundering raids into India, the Ghazis came handy to him. Mahmud also posed as a great Butshikan, or destroyer of the images for the glory of Islam. Satish Chandra is getting interesting now. Let's see. He was able to do all this with impunity due to the fact that no strong state existed in North India at that time. It is not correct to dismiss Mahmud as just a raider and plunderer. What? What is he saying? जो वायलेंस परपेट्रेटर है उसका दोष नहीं है, जो विक्टिम है उसका दोष है कि क्यों डिफेंड नहीं कर पाया खुद को। ये लॉजिक देके मार्क्सिज्म मरवा रहा था 70 साल से। लिसन टू दिस सेंटेंस वंस अगेन। He was okay. Mahmud posed as a great Butshikan, destroyer of images for the glory of Islam. The Ghazis came handy to him. Ghazis were helping him. Ghazis are people who take up arms and kill non-Muslims. But he was able to do all this with impunity due to the fact that no strong state existed in North India at that time. It is not correct to dismiss Mahmud as just a raider and plunderer. तो क्या है? Observation of Meenakshi Jain. Iconoclasm in Islam dates to the Prophet himself, peace be upon him, who according to Ibn Ishaq ordered the destruction of all idols around the Kaaba. Yes, you all will have to read the book I'm going to recommend is this thin, okay? It is this thin. It's called Islam vis-a-vis Hindu Temples by Sitaram Goel. इतना थिन बुक है, उसमें सब कुछ डॉक्यूमेंट कर दिया है, नीचे साइटेशन पे साइटेशन सब इस्लामिक टेक्स्ट से, बिकॉज सीताराम गोयल लर्नड फारसी just so that he could refute these things. So Andre Wink says, a famous historian, has pointed out that Mahmud's reputation in the Islamic world rested on the two interrelated accomplishments of breaking the idols and de-hoarding the temple treasures of Al-Hind. He says, the idol of Somnath was believed by some to have been brought from Makkah before the time of Prophet. Its destruction was hailed by contemporary and later authors as the crowning glory of Islam over idolatry and elevated Mahmud to the status of a hero. Further, Wink points out that Islamic iconoclasm was almost always directed against non-Islamic objects. When Mahmud attacked the Ismailis of Multan, he did not destroy their mosque, but left it to decay. हाँ, यहाँ पे रोमिला थापर का इकोनॉमिक रीजन कहाँ गया? It may be noted here that Ismailis were regarded as apostates and heretics by devout Sunni Muslims such as Mahmud. Much has been made of Mahmud's Central Asian ambitions. As Kulke and Rothermund observe, he regarded the Central Asian Empire with as much indifference as he did India, and only paid it attention at times of unrest. Only at times of unrest. In making these claims, Indian Marxists seem motivated by the desire to suppress the indelible link between Islam and iconoclasm. Okay, text. Satish Chandra says, but the Rajputs' basic weakness was their tendency to form exclusive groups, each claiming superiority over others. They were not prepared to extend the sense of brotherhood to non-Rajputs. अब जब ये brotherhood हो रहा है, तब बोल रहा है कि हिंदुत्व को dismantle करो चूती. देखो. So this led to a growing gap between the Rajput ruling groups and the people, most of whom were non-Rajputs. इनमें से गैप हो गया था. अब गैप नहीं है, अब गैप कम हो रहा है. अभी इससे भी डर लग रहा है इनको. अभी डर का माहौल हो गया है क्योंकि इतना गैप कम हो गया. Okay, Meenakshi Jain refutes this. The open nature of the Rajput category has been acknowledged by several historians. Even Meenakshi Jain clarified it in a few pages back. Dirk Clough says, अरे कितना बड़ा citation है. अरे कहाँ citation का है, book का नाम क्या है? For example, notes that the exclusion of many categories of peasants amongst them. He cites the example of Pasis, several of whom became Rajputs by giving their daughters to Panwars and other Rajput families. Okay, lots of comments here. Which country ISKCON were arrested? It is changing in case you forget they arrested ISKCON people. I see. I think if Christianity can reform in the West, then Islam can be too. Abhay, no. I don't think so. I don't have enough basis to make this claim. Actually, I just think I have a hunch that it will never happen. Uttishta Bharata. Yes, Rammohn Roy is buried in England, right? In England, in some place that starts with B. Why do I keep moving this cable? I'm sorry. Okay, next point by Satish Chandra. The Sufis preached the gospel of love, faith and dedication to the one God. They directed their preachings mainly towards the Muslim settlers, but they influenced some Hindus also. Thus, a process of interaction between Islam and Hindu religion and society was started. Lahore became a center of Arabic and Persian languages and literature. Hindu generals such as Tilak commanded the Ghaznavid armies in which Hindu soldiers were also recruited. Kitna sundar hai. Meenakshi Jain refutes this, says, most Sufis at one time or another regarded conversion as one of their primary objectives in India. The establishment of the Chishti hospice at the Ajmer and Suravardi Khanka in Multan in the 13th century were as much a missionary as a religio-mystical activity. Ajmer, it has been pointed out, was the heartland of the Hindu military aristocracy. Sufis are also known to have participated in warfare. Warrior Sufis were active in the Deccan during the years 1296 to 1347. Bengal was also said to have been won not by Muslim cavalrymen but by Bara Auliyas. Yes, Nizamuddin Auliya. The 12 legendary Muslim militant saints. Muslim militant saint. ये भाई बुद्धिस्ट जैसा बात है. The Sufis were not indifferent to the success of the Islamic enterprise in India. The Chishtis, for example, closely identified with the political fortunes of Indo-Muslim states. As Richard Eaton has pointed out, by effectively injecting a legitimizing substance into a new body politic at the moment of its birth, the Chishti sheikhs contributed positively to the process of Indo-Muslim state building. As for the enlistment of Hindu soldiers in Ghaznavid armies, is it being argued that the Turkish conquest was a joint Indo-Muslim enterprise? Hindu soldiers were recruited in the colonial army as well. Did that make British conquest an Indo-British venture? This is an interesting point. This point never came to my mind. I used to be apologetic about it. I'm not going to be anymore because I'm reading such an awesome paper by a qualified person. Okay, the next text by Satish Chandra says, she, Razia, sent an expedition against Ranthambore to control the Rajputs and successfully established law and order in the length and breadth of something. The length and breadth of her kingdom. Meenakshi Jain says, the Ranthambore expedition and the one against Gwalior were the only two campaigns undertaken in Razia's reign and both ended in failure. Her reign was so turbulent that there was no question of her successfully establishing law and order. This is part of the Marxist tendency to glorify even the failures of Turkish rulers. Lots of comments. Okay, today's entire comment section is from Bengal. This is interesting. Uttishta Bharata, you are from Bengal. You are also Bengali, right? Rammohn Roy, buried in Bristol. Yes. Okay, Abhay is saying Islam is 600 years behind Christianity in the circle, but it won't take as much time now due to information change. I hope you are right. तुम्हारे मुंह में घी शक्कर. तुम्हारे मुंह में vegan घी शक्कर, hopefully. Now, Satish Chandra's next point is that, but there is no doubt that with his, that is Balban's accession to the throne, there began an era of strong centralized government. Meenakshi Jain says, Balban has been erroneously presented as a strong monarch. Habib and Muhammad Habib, Irfan Habib's father, and K.A. Nizami, Delhi Sultanate, Comprehensive History of India, People's Publishing, these people, Habib and Nizami, have highlighted many instances of his military weakness and concluded that Balban, his officers and his army proved themselves extraordinarily inefficient and clumsy. Mohammad Habib और निज़ामी बोल रहा है. They point out, for example, अभी सतीश चंद्र को प्रमाण करना है कि वो उससे मोहम्मद हबीब से भी बड़ा मुसलमान प्रेमी है, तो ये सब लिख रहा है. कौन कितना बड़ा मार्क्सिस्ट हो सकता है, कौन कितना बड़ा प्रो मुस्लिम बन सकता है, दैट इज द competition that's going on between the historians. Okay, these guys are so far left. Satish Chandra is far left, more pro-Muslim than even Muhammad Habib. Balban, Muhammad Habib writes, Balban, his officers and his army proved themselves extraordinarily efficient and clumsy. They point out, for example, Habib, that it took Balban more than 6 years to crush the rebellion of Tughril Khan in Bengal. Balban also dared not challenge any of the great Hindu rise and failed to check the raids of frontier Mongol officers. Both in the civil and the military field, they conclude, Balban and his governing class had been tried and found wanting. Wanting मतलब कुछ अभी भी कमियां हैं जिससे जो चीज़ें वो उसे चाहना है. So wanting. He needs to have that. Many Muslims are getting disillusioned too. Yes. Satish Chandra next says, in order to prove his claim to noble blood, Balban stood forth as the champion of the Turkish nobility. Meenakshi Jain says, Balban has in fact been accused of weakening Turkish power in India by eliminating several members of the slave aristocracy. Some scholars, slave aristocracy, English translators को अगर non-English कुछ translate करना है तो उसमें दिमाग नहीं लगाएगा. Slave aristocracy. Some scholars point out that his objection in vanquishing the Shamsi nobles was to promote his own slaves. Next, Satish Chandra says Jalaluddin Khalji ruled only for a brief period of 6 years. He tried to mitigate some of the harsh aspects of Balban's rule. He was the first ruler of the Delhi Sultanate to clearly put forward the view that the state should be based on the willing support of the governed, and that since the large majority of the people in India were Hindus, the state in India could not be a truly Islamic state. Meenakshi Jain says this is a perverse distortion of Jalaluddin's position. He in fact had a strong desire to be recognized as a mujahid fi sabilillah, fighter in the path of God, and deeply regretted his inability to enforce the full gamut of Islamic laws and regulations in the country. He lamented to his relative Malik Ahmad Chap that we cannot compare ourselves with Sultan Mahmud and Sultan Sanjar, that we should do the same what they had done. Don't you see that the Hindus, who are the greatest enemies of God and Islam, pass below my palace every day, beating their drums and trumpets, and go to river Jamna for idol worshipping? They practice polytheism and infidelity before our very eyes. Yeah, the economic reasons for breaking temples. This quote needs to be pasted everywhere. They practice polytheism and infidelity before our very eyes, and we, who lack religious zeal and yet claim to be the king of the Muslims, they are not afraid of our dignity and royal strength. Had I been king of Islam, which means he wanted to be a caliph, had I been the caliph, righteous king, or a born prince, and a powerful refuge of true faith, I, for the honor of religion, would not have spared the enemies of Islam, particularly the Hindus. बैठ के hate speech पढ़ रहा हूँ लोगों का. Harsh Jai is saying, if you see in the West, non-believers are more than believers. Yeah, that is true. But Harsh Jha, West का जो non-believers है, वो सब are Christian families, okay? No Muslim in the West is a non-believer. I mean, there may be some, but that's a fraction of a minority. Afin is saying, again, no, even, for example, USA, it is the most industrialized, yet most missionary activities funded from there, yes. Satish Chandra says, although the historians of the time accuse Khusro of being anti-Islamic and of committing all types of crimes, the fact is that Khusro was no worse than any of the preceding monarchs. Nor was there any open resentment voiced against him by the Muslim nobles or by the population of Delhi. Even Nizamuddin Aulia, we have famous Bengali songs on Nizamuddin Aulia. Oh, all of you are Bengalis here, so you all probably know this. Dillite Nizamuddin Aulia ailo. Even Nizamuddin Auliya, the famous Sufi saint of the Delhi, acknowledged Khusro by accepting the gifts. This had a positive aspect too. It showed that the Muslims of Delhi and the neighboring areas were no longer swayed by racist considerations and were prepared to obey anyone, irrespective of his family or racial background. So nice people, Satish Chandra's claims. This helped in broadening the social base of the nobility still further. Meenakshi Jain says, again, half-truths, untruths, no truths. Aziz Ahmad, famous Muslim historian. Aziz Ahmad says, the contemporary Muslim historians of those days record that there was general rejoicing in the Hindu population that Delhi had once more come under Hindu rule and that the Muslims had been superseded and dispersed. Further, Aziz Ahmad says, his apostasy, in any case, continued to retain an element of syncretism, if one may judge by the lavish grant of money he presented to Nizamuddin Auliya, to pray for him. His rule, which lasted only 4 months, was much too short to assess what the real reactions of the Muslim governors would have been, when most of them, like Ghazi Malik, became fully aware of the danger of Muslim survival in India. The declared objectives of Ghazi Malik's jihad were 3. To purify the light of the true faith from the dust of paganism in this dangerous land and to re-establish the glory of Islam. 2. To conquer this empire from the Hindus to restore it to its true heir, a Khalji prince if one still survived. 3. To punish the traitors for their treachery. Okay. Abhay is saying, which state does he live in? Delhi te Nizamuddin Auliya alo. Yes. How many Bengalis are chat? Everyone is Bengali here in chat today, except you, Harsh. Finally, some Bengali concentration in, because I have some great Bengali books I want to discuss in live streams as well. I have a Bengali book on Shivaji, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj. Okay, next text from Satish Chandra says, Alauddin also overran Jalore, which lay on the route to Gujarat. Almost all the other major states in Rajasthan were forced to submit to him. However, it seems that he did not try to establish direct administration over the Rajput states. The Rajput rulers allowed to rule but had to pay regular tribute and to obey the orders of the Sultan. Muslim garrisons were posted in some of the important towns such as Ajmer, Nagaur, etc. Thus, Rajasthan was thoroughly subdued. Meenakshi Jain says, again, quotes Muhammad Habib and Nizami to say that the plan of annexing Rajasthan was attempted in part and then given up as impracticable. Hoga nahi unse, isliye give up kar diya. This is what Muhammad Habib is saying. The father of Indian History Academia, who was appointed by Liaquat Ali Khan, as far as I remember, to be the history chair at Aligarh Muslim University. That man is being more rational than Satish Chandra now. Clearly, this does not match the author's perception. Meenakshi Jain ne अच्छे से दिया है. Okay, let's check some comments. Chinmay Kaushik, bro, love from Maharashtra, obviously. Yes, finally some Marathi people as well. Love from Kolkata to you, Chinmay. Chinmay ji, whatever your age is. Harsh is saying, yes, that's why we need to be Atmanirbhar. Depends. US right see Hindus as pagans and US left don't like Hindus because Hindus are still majority in India. Yes. Yeah, we are truly alone. Okay, then Satish Chandra says, although Barani writes as if all the measures mentioned above were directed solely against the Hindus, it is clear that they were in the main directed against the privileged sections in the countryside. ये देखो, ब्राह्मण हेट आ गया है सतीश चंद्र का. जो भी कर रहा था ब्राह्मणों के खिलाफ कर रहा था, हिंदुओं के खिलाफ नहीं. ब्राह्मण हिंदू नहीं है, ब्राह्मण मैजिकल एलियन है. Alauddin's agrarian policy was certainly harsh and must have affected the ordinary cultivators also, but it was not so burdensome as to drive them into rebellion or flight. The land revenue reforms of Alauddin marked an important step towards closer relationship with the rural areas. This is purely because of Marxist reasons. This is not entirely because of this last concept. This is because of Marxism. This is not because of his otherwise anti-Hindu nature. The anti-Hindu nature and the Marxist nature overlaps most of the times, but this is purely a Marxist reason, okay? Because the things done by Alauddin, any Marxist would have supported it. There is a lot of overlap between actually communism and Islam. And the results are kind of same as well. A classic case of being too clever by half. Meenakshi Jain. The privileged sections in the countryside, Meenakshi Jain says, the privileged sections in the countryside, so-called, alluded to here, were all happened to be Hindus. पहले बोला कि हिंदूज के साथ कुछ नहीं हो रहा था, फिर बोला कि सिर्फ प्रिविलेज क्लास के साथ हो रहा था. प्रिविलेज क्लास कौन सा रिलीजन का था? हाँ, ये माया इनका था, वो इंडिया का प्रिविलेज क्लास. The overall effect of Alauddin's policies was to transfer a significantly larger share of the agricultural surplus from the Hindu chiefs to the Muslim governing class. The land revenue reforms, uniformly recognized as extremely severe, can hardly be described as an important step in bringing the Sultan closer to the countryside. खुद तो बोल दिया कि थोड़ा हार्श हो गया, ज़्यादा हो गया. Okay, now Satish Chandra says, it appears that the Sultan wanted to make Deoghir a second capital so that he might be able to control South India better. Though the attempt to make Deoghir a second capital failed, the exodus did have a number of long-range benefits. It helped in bringing North and South India closer together by improving communications. अच्छा. सुल्तान के वजह से नॉर्थ और साउथ का कम्युनिकेशन बेटर हुआ, उससे पहले नहीं था, ठीक है. दिस गेट्स क्रेजियर एंड क्रेजियर. नॉर्थ और साउथ इंडिया को यूनाइट के लिए हमें एक सुल्तान चाहिए था, ये सुल्तान का ही ज़रूरी था. It helped in bringing North and South India closer together by improving communications. Achha. Many people, including religious divines who had gone to Daulatabad, settled down there. They became the means of spreading in the Deccan the cultural, religious and social ideas which the Turks had brought with them to North India. अच्छा. अब लाइन पे आ रहा है कि क्या कौन सा कल्चरल कम्युनिकेशन ठीक कर रहा था? टर्किश का. This resulted in a new process of cultural interaction between North and South India, as well as in South India itself. पहले नहीं था, as if. Meenakshi Jain says, according to some modern historians, the project was dictated by the absence of Muslims in the Deccan and the Sultan's desire to make Daulatabad a center of Islamic culture. So modern historians have refuted him. Okay, now the next line by Satish Chandra. Let's check out some comments. Yeah, Abhay Agarwal is saying Sanskrit South में हुईया चिल के. Harsh is saying top leadership in both Republican and Democratic are not antagonist to Hindus. हाँ, टॉप लीडरशिप के दिमाग में क्या चल रहा है वो तो आपको कभी पता नहीं चलेगा, वो प्रॉब्लम है. But Harsh, I would like to correct you in one thing. Top leadership of Democrat Party is not anti-Hindu right now, yes, but ये top leadership नहीं रहने वाला है ज़्यादा दिन. Bernie Sanders faction will come to power in the Democratic Party, okay, and they are all anti-Hindu. Okay, now Satish Chandra says, Muhammad Tughlaq undertook a number of measures to improve agriculture. Most of these were tried out in the Doab region. Muhammad Tughlaq did not believe in Alauddin Khilji's policy of trying to reduce the khuts and muqaddams, the headmen in the villages, to the position of ordinary cultivators. But he did want an adequate share of the land revenue of the state. The measures he advocated had a long-term impact, but they failed disastrously during his reign. Historians are of the opinion that the trouble started due to overassessment. Although the share of state remained half as in the time of Alauddin, it was fixed arbitrarily, not on the basis of actual produce prices. Prices were also fixed artificially for converting the produce into money. ये artificial price fixing is absolute commie stupidity. Meenakshi Jain refutes, says that Muhammad bin Tughlaq in fact resorted to even more stringent measures than Alauddin Khilji. To begin with, the oppressive taxation system, hitherto confined to the Doab, was now extended to other territories as well, the taxation, and was greatly enhanced. Whether the Sultan imposed additional taxes or recalculated existing ones in a manner detrimental to the peasantry, it is indisputable that the extraordinarily harsh exactions provoked widespread peasant revolts. It is not clear what the author means by saying that the measures he advocated had a long-term impact, but they failed disastrously during his reign. अच्छा, long-term impact हुआ, बाद में काम हुआ, मगर उसके reign में काम नहीं हुआ. क्या justification है? क्या justification है ये? Does it imply this is like some artist, you know? He wasn't appreciated in his time. 40 साल बाद उसका गाना किसी को पसंद आया. अभी इसका इकोनॉमिक पॉलिसी ऐसा है कि वो अभी गड्ढे में डाल दिया उसके किंगडम को, 40 साल बाद जाके उसका सो कॉल्ड काम आया वो पॉलिसी. Does it imply that subsequent Islamic rulers were more effective in implementing Muhammad bin Tughlaq's harsh economic agenda? His father, Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq, had reduced the pressure on the courts and muqaddams only because he realized that they were indispensable for revenue collection. He, however, was clear that they should be kept in such a condition that they should not become oblivious of the authority of the government. तो भूल मत जाना किसके लिए काम कर रहे हो. And rebellious, so they should not become rebellious and refractory from excessive affluence. हाँ, ज़्यादा उड़ने मत देना उसको. They knew that they had to maintain this. Harsh is saying, okay, Rohan is saying Indian right wing, Indic wing, Dharmic wing need to be less reactive and stop following US right. Harsh is saying Abhay Agarwal, that was a cruel Brahmanical imposition. Rohan, yeah, US right at least is has some common enemies, थोड़ा बहुत इसलिए. Plus they are some guys have some good ideas about economics. थोड़ा बहुत enlightenment era का अच्छा चीज़ें भी है. डेमोक्रेट पार्टी का ये सब कुछ भी नहीं है. Abhay Agarwal says that follow Suhas Shukla Kona to understand the situation of Hindus in North America. I see. Okay, now let me have a sip of coffee. Firoz. Satish Chandra says Firoz led a campaign against the ruler of Jajnagar in Orissa. He desecrated the temples there and gathered a rich plunder, but made no attempt to annex Orissa. He also led a campaign against Kangra in the Punjab hills. Meenakshi Jain says it should have been clarified that the temple attacked in Orissa was the great Jagannath temple. ये मेंशन ही नहीं किया कि इतना ये सिग्निफिकेंट टेम्पल को डिस्ट्रॉय किया था. Satish Chandra tries to give the vibe that वो थोड़ा रास्ते पे कोई रैंडम एक छोटा मोटा मंदिर था, वो जाके तोड़ दिया. Also, the annexation of Orissa was beyond Firoz's capacity. It can hardly be cited as an example of his magnanimity. वो उससे होता नहीं, इसलिए नहीं किया. सतीश चंद्र ने बोल दिया कि देखो मंदिर तोड़ा फिर भी एनेक्स नहीं किया, कितना अच्छा आदमी है. Okay, now Satish Chandra says these narrow views of Firoz Tughlaq were certainly harmful. Narrow views क्यों रख रहे हो? Secular बनो. At the same time, Firoz Tughlaq was the first ruler who took steps to have Hindu religious works translated from Sanskrit into Persian so that there may be a better understanding of Hindu ideas and practices. Many books on music, medicine and mathematics were also translated from Sanskrit into Persian during his reign. Okay, Meenakshi Jain says it was mainly medical works that Firoz ordered to be translated from Sanskrit into Persian. क्योंकि बचाना तो है लोगों को. Other works translated were also for their practical knowledge, as for example, a treatise on Hindu astronomy and astrology and works on music and wrestling. हिंदुओं का जो चीज़ें वो खुद के काम आएगा वो सिर्फ ट्रांसलेट किया. Okay, now Firoz. Satish Chandra says Firoz also took a number of humanitarian measures. He banned inhuman punishments such as cutting off hands, feet, nose, etc. for theft and other offences. He set up hospitals for free treatment of the poor. Marxism आ गया. Freebies दिया है, इसको तो hero बोलना ही है. He set up hospitals for free treatment of the poor and ordered the kotwals to make lists of unemployed persons and provided dowries for the daughter of the poor. However, it is likely that these measures... I was telling you just few days back, right? Dowry was created by Muslims. However, it is likely that these measures were basically designed to help Muslims of good families who had fallen into bad times. This again shows the limited nature of the state in India during the medieval times. However, Firoz did emphasize that the state was not meant merely for awarding punishments and collecting taxes. But state गरीब मुसलमानों को free dowry और free health care देते फिर रहा था. But The duty of a state was to be a benevolent institution as well. Ha ha ha, welfare state. In the context of the medieval times, the assertion of this principle of benevolence was a valuable one. And Firuz deserves credit for it, क्योंकि वो तो ancient Marxist है ना, medieval era का Marxist है. Meenakshi Jain says, this is a deliberate attempt at obfuscation. The author himself admits that Firuz's acts of benevolence were confined to Muslims. To then praise him for asserting the principle of benevolence can only be described as misleading and Marxist. Firuz was known for his harsh treatment of his Hindu subjects and his fanaticism. वो छोड़ के बोल रहा है कि अच्छा देखो कितने मुस्लिम बच्चों का हेल्प किया, पैसा वैसा दिया. So Marxist, bro. Okay. Shravya is saying most powerful voices in the Indian right are more leaning towards the Christian conservatives rather than judging both left and right, drawing an indie conclusion. Yeah, you have to choose one. If you try everywhere, you are going to be nowhere. Who are the most powerful voices in Indian right wing? Actually, most powerful voices in Indian right wing is probably Jaisai Deepak. Harsh is saying so for funds they will change their attitudes towards Hindus. Yes, Harsh, this is 100% true. ये तो होना ही है. Okay, fanaticism. Now Satish Chandra says, the raid into India by Timur was a plundering raid and its motive was to seize the wealth accumulated by the sultans of Delhi over the last 200 years. Timur then entered Delhi and sacked it without mercy. Large number of people, both Hindu and Muslim, as well as women and children, lost their lives. अच्छा, इसमें मीनाक्षी जैन क्या रिफ्यूट करने वाली है? This will be interesting. Meenakshi Jain says, Timur repeatedly states in his memoirs, the Tuzuki Timuri, that he had a twofold objective in invading Hindustan. The first was to... Okay, now she's quoting Timur himself. The first was to war with the infidels. ये है first priority. ये सतीश चंद्र ने ignore कर दिया. And thereby acquire some claim to reward in the life to come. After life में क्या होगा इसके लिए हिंदुओं को मारना है, ये था तिमुर का आइडिया. और इसके नाम पे सैफ अली खान ने नाम रख दिया. हिस्ट्री एंथुसियास्ट है वो. The second motive was that the army of Islam might gain something by plundering. क्या? अरे यहाँ पे स्क्रॉल करने में बहुत टाइम लगता है. By plundering the Sayyids, by plundering the wealth and valuables of the infidels. Satish Chandra क्या research किया? Timur further says, excepting the quarter of the Sayyids, the ulema and other Muslims, the whole city was sacked. लो, तिमूर खुद अपने बायोग्राफी में बोल रहा है कि मैंने सैयदों का, उलेमाओं का और मुसलमानों का नेबरहुड छोड़ के सब कुछ डिस्ट्रॉय कर दिया. ये तिमूर खुद बोल रहा है. दिस कोट नीड्स टू बी शेयर्ड एवरीवेयर एवरी टाइम वी डिस्कस सैफ अली खान्स नेम. ओके, नाउ सतीश चंद्र सेज, all the peasants did not live at the level of subsistence. The village headmen or the mukaddams and smaller landlords called khoots enjoyed a higher standard of life. In addition to their own holdings, they held lands for which they paid revenue at concessional rates. Sometimes they misused their offices to force the ordinary peasants to pay their share of the land revenue also. These people were prosperous enough to ride on costly Arabi and Iraqi horses, wear fine clothes and behave like members of the upper classes. ये अशरफ word तो कभी use नहीं करेगा ये लोग. As we have seen, Alauddin Khalji took stern action against them and curtailed many of their privileges. Even then they continued to enjoy a higher standard of living than the ordinary peasants. It seems that after the death of Alauddin, they were able to resume their old ways. What's the refutation? Meenakshi Jain says, again, an attempt at deception. The situation did not improve under the successors of Alauddin. Ghiyasuddin Tughlaq levied land revenue on the basis of the actual produce and not on the basis of estimated yields. Actual produce, not on the basis of estimated yields. Muhammad bin Tughlaq resorted to even harsher measures than Alauddin Khilji. He extended the oppressive taxation system, hitherto confined to the Doab, to other territories including Gujarat, Malwa, the Deccan, Bengal. Besides, he greatly enhanced the rate of taxation. The extraordinarily harsh exactions provoked widespread peasant revolts. Okay, let's check out some comments here. Chinmay ji is saying there are many YouTube channels which are showing real history. They are as follows: Ganda Berunda for Indo-Islamic confrontation, Maratha history for history of Maratha power, God of Warriors. Yes, many people have been recommending these channels. Rohan is saying I think JSD is not much against LGBTQ. Yes, there is another good channel that exists, Kirti History. Okay, I see. आजकल एक बात है कि बुक पढ़ने का अगर हैबिट आ जाए तब और चैनल वैनल फॉलो करने में उतना मज़ा नहीं आता है लगता है कि हाँ हम खुद पढ़ लेंगे, खुद पढ़ के खुद का इंटरप्रिटेशन करेंगे, खुद डायरेक्ट प्राइमरी सोर्सेज से पढ़ेंगे. मेरा एटलीस्ट अभी यही हाल है. अलाउद्दीन, हाँ. Now Satish Chandra says, these wealthy merchants and skilled craftsmen lived a luxurious life and were accustomed to good food and clothing. The merchants, Hindu and Muslims, were attended by pages bearing swords with silver and gold work. In Delhi, the Hindu merchants rode horses with costly trappings, lived in fine houses, and celebrated their festivals with great pomp and show. Meenakshi Jain says, the several policies of the Khaljis and Tughlaqs are well known. Which period is the author referring to? The conditions described seem to be a figment of his imagination. Okay, this was a pretty harsh criticism. ये लोग आमने सामने डिबेट क्यों नहीं करते? आमने सामने करने से कितना कुछ क्लियर हो जाता है. ये रोमिला थप्पर भागती फिरी, सीताराम गोयल ने कितना बार चैलेंज किया. Okay, now Satish Chandra says, slavery had existed in India as well as in West Asia and Europe for a long time. Slavery का translation Satish Chandra को पता नहीं है क्योंकि even in Islamic kingdoms, slavery did not mean slavery in the sense of Africans being taken as slaves by white people, okay? Because just few minutes back we were talking about slave aristocracy. Back then slaves meaning a lifelong bureaucrat. जन तक ये सरकार के लिए काम करेगा, ब्यूरोक्रेसी में रहेगा. Okay, the positions of different types of slaves. One born in the household, one purchased, one acquired, and one inherited is discussed in the Hindu Shastras. Okay, Shastras. कौन सा शास्त्र ये स्पेसिफाई करने में क्या जाता है इनका? जो शास्त्र में है सब में मेंशन कर दो. Slavery had been, when they deliberately want to be vague or don't mention the backup, that's when you know they're lying. Slavery had been adopted by the Arabs and later by the Turks also. The most usual method of acquiring a slave was capture in war. Even the Mahabharata, acquiring a slave was capture in war. The most usual method of acquiring a slave was capturing them in war. ये point बोल के मुस्लिमों ने जो हिंदुओं को स्लेव बनाया, हिंदू कुछ ले गए. यमन में आज लोग जो उनका थोबड़ा देखो इंडियन लगते हैं. उन पर आज भी अत्याचार हो रहा है. पूरा मिडल ईस्ट भरा है इंडियन स्लेव्स के, हिंदू स्लेव्स के डिसेंडेंट से, रोमानी वगैरह. ये पॉइंट बोल सकते थे. ये पॉइंट नहीं बोल के डायरेक्ट जस्टिफिकेशन ढूंढ रहे. हिंदुओं ने भी तो ऐसा किया है, देखो जस्ट लाइक हिंदूज, हर तरफ खराब लोग हैं. तो इवन द महाभारता considered it normal to enslave a prisoner of war. चूतिया medieval in history का बात हो रहा है, महाभारत में क्या बोला है वो डिस्कस कर रहा है. ये नहीं बोल रहा है कि medieval इंडिया में हिंदुओं को स्लेव बनाया गया. Mahabharata considered it normal to enslave a prisoner of war. The Turks practiced this on a large scale in their wars in and outside India. हाँ, पहले महाभारत बोल लिया. It can be argued that the condition of slave was better than that of a domestic servant because the master of the former was obliged to provide him food and shelter, while a free person may starve to death. Okay. Meenakshi Jain says, Andre Wink's study indicates that the slave trade in the Arab world cannot rightly be compared with practices mentioned in the Mahabharata. He notes that the number of black slaves which was exported by Arabs across the trans-Saharan trade route reached a total of 1,740,000 in the period 900 to 1100 AD. In the period 850 to 1000 AD, the number of black slaves exported across the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean to Islamic Asia and to India was near to 10,000 per year. Perhaps the conclusion is justified that the importation of black slaves to Islamic countries from Spain to India over a period of 12 centuries surpassed in numbers the African slave trade to the New World, but Islam by no means restricted enslavement to Africans. The main source of military and elite slaves were the Turks of the Eurasian steppes. Okay, Note this point. What Andre Wink is saying. I hope I had this in front of my head so I could underline this shit. Andre Wink is saying that it could be argued that perhaps the conclusion is justified. It could be argued that the importation of black slaves to Islamic countries was more than the importation of black slaves from Africa by white people. Okay? ये जो Black Lives Matter का ally बनते फिर रहे हैं ये लोग, इनके ancestors were bigger slave holders of black people than white people. Let's check out some comments. I'll have some coffee as well. Ifin, one question must be asked. Dash came and Dash destroyed temple. We or them and our or yours. Ask them this and you will know where they stand. Yes. Ifin is saying, oh, isn't Mahabharata just a mythological and not a real story? Here it is a real event. Shravya is saying, he has not quoted the Mahabharata on slavery, so I have no doubt that he most probably was making it up. But on a serious note, were the Turks reading Mahabharata? Yes, Mahabharata se hi sikha Turks ne. Your observation might be correct, yes. Okay, now let's see what Satish Chandra writes. During this period, the practice of keeping women in seclusion and asking them to veil their faces in the presence of outsiders, that is, the practice of parda, became widespread among the upper class women. The practice of secluding women from the vulgar gaze was practiced among the upper class Hindus. कुछ भी चीज हिंदुओं का जब खराब चीज बोलना है उसमें कंपैरिजन नहीं होगा किसी के साथ. अगर कोई खराब काम करता है and he happens to be Hindu, then the fault is with the Hindu text and religion. But opposite में सब कुछ opposite है. Opposite में if a Muslim person is wrong and if a person happens to do something wrong and happens to be Muslim, there's no fault of the religion. And also, if at all they are going to be mentioning the fault of a Muslim person, they will have to compare it with the with a kind of similar thing done by Hindus as well. So now डर गया एक लाइन बोल के पर्दा सिस्टम आ गया खराब हो गया, but the practice was done by upper class Hindus as well and was also in vogue in ancient Iran, Greece, etc. हाँ सब कोई खराब था. The Arabs and Turks adopted this custom and brought it to India with them. Due to their example, it became widespread in India, particularly in North India. The growth of parda has been attributed to the fear of the Hindu women being captured by the invaders. In an age of violence, women were liable to be treated as prizes of war. Perhaps the most important factor for the growth of parda was social. It became a symbol of the higher classes in society, and all those who wanted to be considered respectable tried to copy it. हिजाब का डिफेंस भी दे दिया है, ठीक है. Also, religious justification was found for it. Whatever the reasons, it affected women adversely and made them even more dependent on men. हाँ, और थोड़ी देर पहले victim blame कर रहा था बोल रहा था कि it's not correct to blame the perpetrator. You should blame the victims for not defending themselves adequately. यही तो कुछ लोग बोलते हैं कि अरे कराटे सीखो, रेप बंद नहीं होगा, तुम कराटे सीखो हो जाएगा. कोई भी औरत कितना भी एमएमए कराटे सीख ले 4-5 लड़कों को हैंडल नहीं कर पाएगी. Okay. Meenakshi Jain says, oh, we already refuted it so much. We forgot to mention Meenakshi Jain's refutation. All this obfuscation to underplay the fact that parda was a direct consequence of the Islamic advent in North India. Yeah, see, she does this in one sentence, which I took 50 sentences to discuss. That एक चीज खराब बोलने में डर के कांपते कितना कुछ डिफेंड कर दिया. ये नहीं ये वो भी करते. Okay, now Satish Chandra says, as for the Hindu subjects from the time of the Arab invasion of Sindh, they had been given the status of zimmis or protected people who accepted the Muslim rule and agreed to pay tax called jizya. This was really a tax in lieu of military service and was paid on a graduated scale according to means. Women, children and the indigent who had insufficient means being exempt from it. The Brahmanas also remained exempt, though this was not provided for in the Muslims' law. At first, jizya was collected along with land revenue. In fact, it was difficult to distinguish jizya from land revenue since all the cultivators were Hindus. Later, Firuz, while abolishing many illegal cesses, made jizya a separate tax. He levied it on the Brahmana also. Sometimes the theologians who were in charge of collecting it tried to use it to humiliate and harass the Hindus. However, jizya by itself could not be a means to force the Hindus to convert to Islam. In general, it might be said that medieval states were not based on the idea of equality but on the notion of privileges. Before the Turks, the Rajputs and to some extent the Brahmanas formed the privileged sections. They were replaced by the Turks. क्या 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 जस्टिफिकेशन दे रहा है. प्रिविलेज क्लास था टर्क और राजपूत और ब्राह्मण, वो रिप्लेस हो गए टर्क से. ये तो एक फैक्ट है, ठीक है. ये रैंडमली बोल दिया कि एज इफ इट्स अ जस्टिफिकेशन फॉर जिजिया. कितना अजीब चीज है ये. बिफोर द टर्क्स द राजपूत्स एंड टू सम एक्सटेंट ब्राह्मणास फ्रॉम द प्रिविलेज सेक्शन. तो क्या हो गया? तो वो प्रिविलेज सेक्शंस थे, तो वो क्या सेम चीजें कर रहे थे जो मुस्लिम इन्वेडर्स कर रहे थे? What has this got to do with all the 10 lines he wrote before this? The principal reason, Meenakshi Jain says, the principal reason that the jizya was not continually levied on Hindus throughout the Sultanate period was that the state did not have the administrative apparatus required for this enormous exercise. The Muslim hold on power was also tenuous and sporadic beyond the principal centers of their authority. हर जगह, हर गांव में, हर जगह में उनका पावर नहीं पहुंच रहा था ताकि ये जाके वो टैक्स कलेक्ट कर सके. In the countryside, in the villages, jizya was submitted within the land tax and not collected separately. In urban areas, however, where Hindus were in more direct contact with Muslim authorities, jizya was charged on an individual basis and was a true poll tax. Jizya symbolized discrimination on religious grounds since it was imposed only on non-Muslims. Medieval chronicles attest that it was used to convert poorer sections of society. Firoz Tughlaq confessed in his autobiography. लो, अब खुद के ऑटोबायोग्राफी से फिर से हम देख रहे हैं. अभी हम तिमूर का ऑटोबायोग्राफी पढ़ चुके हैं जहाँ के उसने कहा है कि उसका फर्स्ट प्रायोरिटी था हिंदुओं को मारना, सेकंड प्रायोरिटी बोला कि मैंने मुस्लिमों का नेबरहुड छोड़ के सब हिंदुओं को मारने का ही प्लान किया है दिल्ली में, और वही किया है. नाउ फिरोज तुगलक राइट्स, I encouraged my infidel subjects to embrace the religion of the Prophet, peace be upon him, and I proclaimed that everyone who repeated the creed and became a Musalman should be exempt from jizya or poll tax. Information of this came to the ears of the people at large, and great numbers of Hindus presented themselves and were admitted to the honor of Islam. Oh man, I can't. I'm going to take a screenshot, okay? No, I'll do this later. I'll have to remember page 30. Page 30 में ये मुझे डालना है. जब भी कोई मुझे आपसे बोलेगा कि इंडिया भारत पाकिस्तान में वैसे भी उसका बहुत रेपुटेशन है कि ब्राह्मणिज्म के वजह से कन्वर्जन हो रहा था ना, ये देखो ब्राह्मणिज्म के वजह से कैसे कन्वर्जन हो रहा था. फिरोज तुगलक खुद कह रहा है, मैंने जिजिया डाल के बोला कि देखो भाई मुसलमान बन जाओ, जिजिया नहीं देना होगा. इसमें ब्राह्मणिज्म का कहाँ दोष आ गया? ये कौमी प्रोपागेंडा है जो ब्राह्मणिज्म के लिए कन्वर्जन हो रहा था. इट्स रिफ्यूटेड इन दिस डैम सेंटेंस. Meenakshi Jain says, to see no difference between Rajputs, Brahmins and Turks only reiterates the non-India perspective of the Marxists. Okay, nice. We are thinking on the same level as Meenakshi Jain. I just said this a few minutes back. Let's check out some comments. Apu Bose, Dada, Jai Shri Radha Krishna, Jai Shri Radha Krishna. Chinmay Singh, bhai log, I am 18 years old. Oh, so please don't call me Chinmay ji. Oh, nice. A first year engineering student. Nice. Chinmay Singh, please read books of V.S. Atlikar for knowing history of Parda. He has book on women of India which shall be helpful for the same. I see. Nice. Okay. Gymnastics में इनको gold. Chinmay Singh, also please read books of Gajanan Bhadkar Purandare. Purandare ji has refuted a lot of leftist historians, especially Irfan Habib. I see. Are these books available in English? Then we'll get into them. Shravya is saying, and then those converted Hindus were treated like second-class citizens among Muslims too. Yeah, Ajbi. Take a snap of it and post it on FB. Yeah. मेरा तो FB खराब हो गया है ये सब डाल के. Okay. To see no difference between Rajputs, Brahmins and Turks only reiterates the non-India perspective on Marx. Okay, I wanted to say something. What Chinmay mentioned, it reminded me something. Yeah. See, he's saying he's 18 years old. Most of you are like first year, second year. Some guy was saying he's 17 years old. So, you see, it's an insanely, incredibly young audience that I have. And more importantly, the people going to these Pondicherry literature festivals, Earth literature festivals, have you seen the footages of the audiences? All of them are absolutely young people, which is absolutely mind-boggling. Never had I ever thought that literature festivals is called a culture fest, but essentially it functions like a literature fest, like, right? Because actually literature festivals try to function like culture fests because they bring lots of other people who are not authors. So in literature festivals, such young audiences are rare. What this time happened in Earth Culture Fest. Even last year, back when Deepak was getting viral in his debates on Sabrimala in the Earth Culture Fest, the audience is so young. So this is what I've been saying to some of my friends, that you have no idea how much penetration Deepak has, guys. Every commie today who has not heard of Deepak or is not acknowledging Deepak or is avoiding listening to him are absolute sitting ducks. And by commie I mean everyone who is against Hindutva, obviously. They are sitting ducks. They have no idea the impact Deepak is having, okay? And especially even Chinmay is saying he's from the engineering background. So I'm saying that any English speaking guy in entire India who is not in liberal arts will some point or the other in their lives definitely listen to Deepak. They will end up listening to Deepak because of YouTube algorithms, and most of them will end up agreeing with him, unless they are absolutely crazy dumb fuck and bad to the core of their hearts that they refuse to listen to Deepak for 2 hours of a full lecture. It is impossible. The next generation, when these guys, when you all turn 30 and 35, a huge number of India, almost entire India, is going to be in line with Deepak's thoughts. Okay, so you may today have agreements or disagreements with Deepak. I have one or two minor conceptual disagreements with Deepak, none on policy. Kushal Mad also, I don't think, has any policy differences with Deepak, only UCC although. But mostly he disagrees on conceptual. But forget all that. Deepak is going to have the most impact, because बात करने का तरीका तो एक पावरफुल स्किल है ही, जो और किसी के पास नहीं है, ना लेफ्ट विंग में ना राइट विंग में. फिर है इंग्लिश के ऊपर ग्रास्प, फिर है क्वालिटी ऑफ आर्ग्यूमेंट्स, फिर है आर्टिकुलेशन, फिर है चॉइस ऑफ वर्ड्स. सब कुछ में Deepak सचिन तेंदुलकर बन के बैठा है. कोई उसको हरा नहीं पाएगा और सबके दिमाग में Deepak घुसते रहेगा. So all we can do is try to be Deepaks. For that, we need to read up as much as him. बाकी grasp, articulation, powerful speech, confidence, वो सब तो बाद में आएगा. पहले नॉलेज हम गैदर कर लेते हैं ये सब पेपर वगैरह से. ये सब से ही तो Deepak भी सीखा है ना. Deepak तो आसमान से नहीं टपका है, उसने भी पढ़ा है, हम भी पढ़ लेंगे. थोड़ा ज़्यादा टाइम लगेगा, हम लोगों को देर में याद आया है ये सब. एटलीस्ट मुझे, तुम लोग तो अभी 17, 18, 21 हो, मैं तो 31 हूँ. ओके, the principal reason, ये तो हो गया ना. Now Satish Chandra says, but as soon as the Turks were settled, they started building their own mosques. Their policy towards temples, ये interesting होगा. Their policy towards temples and places of worship of the Hindus, Jains, etc. rested on the Muslim law Sharia, which forbade new places of worship being built in opposition to Islam, but it allowed the repair of old temples, since buildings cannot last forever. I guess it's a quote from some Islamic text. This meant that there was no ban on erecting temples in the villages, since there were no practices of Islam there. Interesting argument. Similarly, temples could be built within the privacy of homes. But this liberal policy was not followed in times of war. Then the enemies of Islam, whether human beings or gods, were to be fought and destroyed. ये कितना अच्छा आदमी है. Now Meenakshi Jain says, how does one counter such blatant dishonesty? Yes, this is what I was facing a few minutes back, right? I was stunned. I was speechless. क्या बोलूं, क्या बोल रहा है? Meenakshi Jain is left speechless. Meenakshi Jain says, क्या बोलूं मैं यहाँ? How does one such counter such blatant dishonesty? Hindu temples, the author says, could be built in homes and villages. Surely it would be difficult to accommodate the grandiose structures of Hindu temples within the precincts of homes. Further, to permit temple construction in villages because Muslims were not present there cannot be held as a proof of liberalism. If temple construction did indeed take place in villages, where are those temples? As Andre Wink has pointed out, the Muslim invasions, apart from destroying temples, interrupted the evolution of Hindu temple architecture. ये कल कौन बोल रहा था? नीलिस बोल रहा था, या अभय बोल रहा था, या उत्तिष्ठ भारत बोल रहा था? कोई बोल रहा था यहाँ पे, या एफिन बोल रहा था? That, and then I said that yeah, even Eastern classical, Indian classical music also stagnated because of that. And this is what exactly and Andre Wink is saying, that temple architecture stagnated. Nowhere in the north, Andre Wink says, did the Hindu temple building tradition perpetuate itself without hindrance. सब जगह hindrance हो रहा था. Okay, let me have a sip of coffee. Yes. Thanks for reminding me about Anand Ranganathan, Rohan. Anand Ranganathan absolutely destroyed Rahmani, and from the get-go, माइक चालू हुआ, डालना शुरू किया उस पर, एकदम बंदूक लेके खड़ा था. And I was saying that Anand Ranganathan was probably drunk, right? He might have been drunk. He might have thought, thoda, let's have fun. But it's a little implausible. I don't think he would be that irresponsible. What I think is, I think he's on antidepressants. I think he has had so much pressure, so much criticism, so much online presence, so much speeches, फिर उनका lecturing career, research, ये सब कुछ में I think he has been going to a therapist. There's a high chance. अगर थेरेपिस्ट के पास गया होगा और थेरेपिस्ट ने एंटी डिप्रेशन दिया हुआ होगा, तो एंटी डिप्रेशन का फर्स्ट सिम्टम होगा कि बहुत अच्छा मूड, बहुत एनर्जी, बहुत एलेशन, माइंड एलेशन. हाँ, उसमें इट काइंड ऑफ लीड्स यू टुवर्ड्स अ बाइपोलरिटी सिचुएशन कि मतलब समझ में नहीं आ रहा कि इतना आनंद कहाँ रखूँ, इतना एक्साइटमेंट कहाँ रखूँ. I think because of that excitement, he had that disastrous interview with Salvatore Babones. Even if you had let him and Rahmani, he would not let even Rahmani speak. It would become his own speech. Then it would not be fun. It's fun because it's a debate, right? We want to hear the stupid arguments made by the other side. और Salvatore Babones के साथ तो ये conversation था. Wait. और Salvatore Babones के साथ तो ये conversation था. वो कॉन्वर्सेशन भी आनंद रंगनाथन ने हाईजैक कर लिया. आई थिंक बिकॉज ही वॉज नॉट रजिस्टरिंग थिंग्स प्रॉपरली, ही वॉज नॉट काम एट ऑल. ही इज अ जीनियस डिबेटर अदरवाइज, बट आई थिंक he has lost his mind a bit, at least on that day it seems, because he's on antidepressants. You all should ask him on Twitter. Let's check some comments. Harsha, is Jadavpur University in BTech stream hostile to Hindus? थोड़ा बहुत है, बट थोड़ा बहुत रेजिस्टेंस भी है. जादवपुर यूनिवर्सिटी में अभी ABVP भी है. That's all from STEM fields. Chinmay is saying, commies say Brahmins did not allow women education. The reality is there are many Brahmins, for example, Ghanshyam Pandey started Swaminarayan Sampradaya, provided education to women on mass level. I see. Yeah, it has commie influence. Nihilist bola chalo. Okay. Now let me get into Satish Chandra's next point. Satish Chandra says, a brilliant period began under the enlightened rule of Alauddin Hussain. The Sultan restored law and order and adopted a liberal policy by offering high offices to the Hindus. Thus, his wazir was a talented Hindu. The chief physician, the chief of the bodyguard, the master of the mint were also Hindus. हाँ, तो इनको काम आता था तो क्या करेगा? और किसी को काम नहीं आता था. The two famous brothers. ये देखो, ये बार बार बोलते जा रहा है. ये भी मैं बहुत सालों से सुन रहा हूँ, कभी रिफ्यूट नहीं किया, कभी दिमाग में आया नहीं, अभी आ रहा है कि हिंदुओं को एम्प्लॉय करना इज नॉट लिबरलिज्म, इज नॉट बेनेवोलेंस, इज नॉट सेक्युलरिज्म. हिंदुओं को एम्प्लॉय कर रहा है बिकॉज ऑफ मेरिटोक्रेसी. उनको वो काम अच्छे से आता है, बाकी को नहीं आता है. अगर वो लोग मुस्लिम रिजर्वेशन रखते, मुस्लिम किंग होके, तब उनका किंगडम रहता नहीं. उन्होंने मेरिटोक्रेसी किया, अच्छे हिंदुओं को काम पे रखा, इसीलिए उनका किंगडम चला. The two famous brothers who were celebrated as pious Vaishnavas, Rupa and Sanatan, held high posts, one of them being the Sultan's private secretary. The Sultan is also said to have shown great respect to the famous Vaishnavite saint Chaitanya. ये फिर से ये शुरू हो गया. Meenakshi Jain is saying this is a complete distortion of facts. When Hussein Shah, yeah, she kind of got into it earlier as well. Yeah, listen to it. Chaitanya के साथ क्या हुआ? चैतन्य महाप्रभु. When Hussein Shah asked Sanatana to accompany him on the Odisha expedition, the latter, Sanatana, refused, saying, "You are going to desecrate Hindu temples and break images of Hindu gods. I cannot accompany you." The furious king thereupon imprisoned Sanatana, who however managed to escape by bribing the prison guards. ये देखो, ये थे guards. Both brothers thereafter renounced the world and went to Vrindavan, where they wrote treatises on Gaudiya Vaishnavism. As for Chaitanya, R.C. Majumdar has pointed out that Hussein Shah had no association with him. In fact, when Chaitanya visited a locality near the residence of Hussein Shah in Navadvip, the people begged him to leave as early as possible and described Hussein Shah as a sworn enemy of Hinduism. Further, after becoming a sannyasi, Chaitanya spent 20 years in the Hindu kingdom of Odisha, not under Hussein Shah, which is surely a comment on Hussein Shah's so-called respect for him. Vaishnava literature of the time also refers to the orders of the Qazi of Navadvip prohibiting kirtans and maltreating Vaishnava singers of kirtans. R.C. Majumdar's quote from History of Medieval Bengal, 1973. Okay. Abhay saying up puncture. जाके ABVP join करूँगा. Harsh, you are from JU or what? Oh, you are from Kolkata. I thought you are from Karnataka. Or you are planning to come to JU. What's going on? Now, Satish Chandra says, the basic concepts of the Bhakti saint poets were reciprocated to a remarkable degree by the Sufi poets and saints of the period. During the 15th century, the monastic ideas of the great Arab philosopher Ibn Arabi became popular among broad sections in India. Arabi had been vehemently denounced by the orthodox elements and his followers persecuted because he held that all being is essentially one and everything is a manifestation of the divine substance. Thus, in his opinion, the different religions were identical. Arabi's doctrine of unity of being is known as Tawhidi Wajudi, unity of being. This doctrine kept on gaining in popularity in India and became the main basis of the Sufi thought before the time of Akbar. Contact with yogis and Hindu saints went a long way in popularizing the concept of pantheism. The Indian Sufis started taking more interest in Sanskrit and Hindi, and a few of them, that's why Hindi got screwed, such as Malik Muhammad Jaisi, composed their works in Hindi. No wonder. The Bhakti songs of the Vaishnavite saints written in Hindi and other languages touched the hearts of the Sufis more than Persian poetry did. The use of Hindi songs became so popular that an eminent Sufi, Abdul Wahid Belgrami, wrote a treatise, Haqaiq Ki Hindi, in which he tried to explain such words as Krishna, Muli, Gopis, Radha, Yamuna, etc. in Sufi mystic terms. Meenakshi Jain is going to refute this using Aziz Ahmed's quote. She is not even going to write it herself. Aziz Ahmed says, due to what Butterfield is another historian, due to what Butterfield would describe as the Whig conception of history, the role of Sufis in India has been overestimated and over-idealized as eclectic and as bridge between Hinduism and Islam. Okay, this is Aziz Ahmed saying this. Majumdar is much nearer the truth in pointing out, R.C. Majumdar. Aziz Ahmed बोल रहा है, R.C. Majumdar ठीक बोल रहा है. R.C. Majumdar is much nearer the truth in pointing out that the role of both Hindu mysticism and Sufism and their interaction in the culture of medieval India have been over-exaggerated beyond all proportion. In fact, the relationship between Sufism and Hinduism and Hindu mysticism is multipositional and ranges from polemical hostility through missionary zeal to tolerant coexistence. ये सब है, ये एक spectrum है, थोड़ा बहुत ये, थोड़ा बहुत ये, थोड़ा बहुत tolerant coexistence, थोड़ा बहुत missionary zeal, थोड़ा बहुत polemical hostility, सब चल रहा है. He further adds that Sufis played an active role in conversion. Aziz Ahmad says, Moplas of the south coast were converted to Islam by the disciples of Malik ibn Dinar, the Dudwalas and Pinjaras of Gujarat by Al-Hallaj, Labbes of Trichinopalli by Nithar Shah, and the Memons of Kutch were converted by Yusuf al-Din Sindhi. The Dodpotas of Sindh and Balochistan converted by the Karamite missionaries of Sindh. The Bohras of Gujarat were converted by Abdullah Kharrazi. Tribes of Wakhan and Afridi Pathans were converted by Nasiri Khusro. And Khojas of Gujarat were converted by Ismaili missionaries like Nur Satgar. In the Ghaznavi Lahore, organized proselytization was begun. In the Ghaznavi Lahore, matlab Lahore under the reign of Ghaznavi, proselytization was begun by Sheikh Ismail Bukhari, and Al-Hujwiri is reported in hagiological tradition to have converted Rai Raju, a Hindu general of the Ghaznavids, to Islam. The इन सब के descendants अब क्या क्या कर रहे हैं. The foundations of ये तो बाकी ज़्यादा ही पाकिस्तान में है, तो ये तब भी चुतिया था, अब भी चुतिया है, अभी देश का ही गड्ढे में डाल दिया. The foundation of the Chishti hospital at Ajmer and the Surawardi hospice we discussed this. Hospital at Multan in the 13th century was as much a missionary as a religio-mystical activity. The choice of Ajmer by Moin al-Din Chishti in the very heartland of Hindu military aristocracy is especially significant, ताकि वहाँ convert कर पाए. Sheikh Farid al-Din Ganji Shakhar and Abu Ali Kalandar, among Chishti mystics, are specially noted in hagiographics for their missionary achievements. The Chishti missionaries resumed their work after 2 generations of inactivity under Nizamuddin Aulia and his immediate successors under pressure from Muhammad bin Tughlaq. In the Qadri order, missionary work was undertaken by Daud Kirmani in the 16th century and was later taken up as a common practice by that order. The Kubrawiya order applied itself to conversion on a large scale, and Sayyid Ali Hamdani is credited to have taken with him an entourage of 700 mashaykh to undertake the proselytization of Kashmir. Meenakshi Jain says, Jayasi's Padmavat was recognized as an Indian fable of Sana in Hindi and not a work on Islamic mysticism in Hindi. Padmavat. Okay, let's check out some comments. Shaveh saying many Sufi did play powerful roles in building of Turk empires like Ottomans, and yes, and most of the riots have been done by Sufis. Direct Action Day was done by Sufis. Or yeah, Aurangzeb was a Sufi. Or Tushki's lover. Let me have a sip of coffee. Now, Satish Chandra says, Sanskrit continued to be a vehicle for higher thought and a medium for literature during the period under review. In fact, the production of works in Sanskrit in different branches was immense and perhaps greater than in the preceding period. Medieval period ka Sanskrit works have survived because this is just 500 years back. They are saying 6,000 years pehle, 7,000 या 8,000 years pehle, even 2,000 years pehle, उतना संस्कृत वर्क नहीं हुआ या नहीं मिला क्योंकि इन्होंने ही तो उड़ा दिया नालंदा, विक्रमशिला, तक्षशिला. नहीं मिला तो नहीं है. Proof of absence, there's a term, abhijit and mitra uses this. तो नहीं है मतलब नहीं हुआ, ये है इनका premise. तो ये क्या अजीब sentence है. The production of works in Sanskrit in different branches was immense and perhaps greater than in the preceding period. Following the great Shankara, works in the field of Advaita philosophy by Ramanuja, Madhva, Vallabha, etc. continued to be written in Sanskrit. The speed with which their ideas were widely disseminated and discussed in different parts of the country showed the important role which Sanskrit continued to play during the period. There was a network of specialized schools and academies in different parts of the country, including areas under Muslim domination. These schools and academies were not interfered with and continued to flourish. In fact, many of them took advantage of the introduction of paper to reproduce and disseminate older texts. Okay, now Meenakshi Jain is again not going to use her own words. She is just going to quote Aziz Ahmad. Aziz Ahmad says in his 1964 paper that the mainstream of Hindu religious and intellectual consciousness continued to flow through Sanskrit literature, which almost ignored the Muslim presence. It was written for the most part in the Hindu states of South India and in Orissa under the patronage of Rajput Rajas. It continued to develop traditions and genres which were purely Hindu in religious and secular writing alike. To this essentially Hindu creative activity, Muslim contribution in the way of participation was nil and in the way of patronage, insignificant. Okay? So, this kind of does not refute what Satish Chandra was saying. Satish Chandra was saying that they did not cause a hindrance to this process. Aziz Ahmad is saying कि कोई help नहीं किया था, जो किया था हिंदुओं ने खुद किया था. Now let's see Meenakshi Jain, what she adds to this. She says, Satish Chandra is perhaps trying to credit Muslim rulers with whatever vitality and creativity was shown by Hindu philosophers in this period. However, it goes without saying that while Shankara largely preceded the Islamic reign in India, Ramanuja and Madhvacharya were basically outside Islam's sphere of influence. Ramanuja and Madhva wrote on Advaita. Hori Hori. Jai Ho Satish Chandra. अभय अग्रवाल, yes, he reminded me this. अरे मैं सोया नहीं ना आज इसलिए भूल रहा हूँ सब कुछ. Absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. yeah. तो अभी सतीश चंद्र बोल रहा है कि a large number of commentaries and digests on the Hindu law dharma shastras were prepared between the 12th and the 16th century. The great Mitakshara of Vigyaneshwar, which forms one of the two principal Hindu schools of law, cannot be placed earlier than the 12th century. Another famous commentator was Chandeshwar of Bihar, who lived in the 4th century. Most of the works were produced in the south, followed by Bengal. हाँ, south में ही क्यों? I wonder why. South में ऐसा क्या नहीं था जो बाकी देश में था? Interesting. South में सब हो रहा है, हाँ? मगर किसी ने hindrance cause नहीं किया, मगर mysteriously south में हो रहा है सब कुछ. Another famous commentator was Chandreshwar of Bihar, who lived in 14th century. Most of the works were produced in the south, followed by Bengal, Mithila and western India under the patronage of Hindu rulers. The Jains too contributed to the growth of Sanskrit. Hemchandra Suri was the most eminent of these. Oddly enough, these works largely ignored the presence of the Muslims in the country. Little attempt was made to translate Islamic works or Persian literature into Sanskrit. हाँ, little attempt was कितना खराब बात है. अरे क्यों ट्रांसलेट करेगा? Possibly the only exception was also ये ट्रांसलेट नहीं किया इसलिए समझ नहीं पाए कि ये कितना बड़ा थ्रेट है. Possibly the only even today this is a problem. I think ideally we should all learn Arabic and Farsi. Little attempt was made to translate the Islamic works or Persian literature into Sanskrit. Possibly the only exception was the translation of the love story of Yusuf and Zulekha, written by the famous Persian poet Jami. This might be taken to be an index of the insularity of outlook which had been mentioned earlier by Al-Biruni. Refusal to face the existing reality may be one reason why much of the writing of this period is repetitive and lacks fresh insight or originality. Lo. Guys, what did he just say? पहला वाला देखो, पेज नंबर 129 में बोल रहा है कि बहुत बढ़िया काम हुआ संस्कृत में. बहुत सारे जॉनराज आ गए, इतना अच्छा काम हुआ संस्कृत में, फिलोसॉफिकली जॉनराज, लॉज में काम हुआ हिंदू लॉज में, और मुस्लिम राजाओं ने कुछ इससे मतलब हिंड्रेंस नहीं किया. पेज 130 में बोल रहा है कि द वर्क वाज रिपीटेटिव. इतना खराब काम हुआ संस्कृत में. Refusal to face the existing reality may be one reason why much of the writing of the period is repetitive and lacks fresh insight or originality. ये क्या इंटर्न से बुक लिखवाया क्या? तो पेज 129 में जो बोला है 130 में 180 डिग्री कॉन्ट्रडिक्ट कर दिया है. Beam is saying, by the way, did anybody read Meenakshi Jain's new book, The Hindus of Hindustan? I will someday. Meenakshi Jain's review of I came now only. Okay, Shravya is saying yesterday's research. Yeah, actually they knew far better what Islam was. For example, Adnya Patra of Ramachandra Pant Amatya. Okay, there might be some, but it's rare because the person you are mentioning, I've never heard of him. Was there significant and influential dissemination of information about the problems of the opposite side? Okay, now Sheldon Pollock. Sheldon Pollock is the guy who got into a fight with Rajiv Malhotra, right, for absolutely no reason. So, Meenakshi Jain says, Sheldon Pollock, Deep Orientalism, Notes on Sanskrit, book का नाम कितना बड़ा है? Sheldon Pollock has noted the so-called luxurious efflorescence of Dharma Shastra works in the courts of Hindu kings. He asks, why these treatises which define what may be viewed as the total society, Varnashrama Dharma, were composed at this time? Was it because, for the first time since the development of the Dharma Shastras, that way of life confronted in the Central Asian Turks something radically different, a resolutely unassimilating social and religious formation? The fact that the production of Dharma Nibandha discourse also perfectly follows the path of advance of the Sultanate from the Doab to Devgiri to the Deccan, and this suggests that on the one hand, that totalizing conceptions of society became possible only by juxtaposition with alternative life worlds, and on the other hand, they became necessary only at the moment when the total form of the society was for the first time believed by the privileged theories of the society to be threatened. This is extremely important, guys. I hope someone takes a screenshot and post this part, okay? This is fascinating part. Sheldon Pollock is confirming in his 1993 paper that धर्म शास्त्रस में जो कास्ट रिजिडिटी है वो आ गया बिकॉज द सोसाइटी वॉज एट अ थ्रेट. उसको प्रोटेक्ट करने के लिए कास्ट सिस्टम को वर्णाश्रम को रिजिड बना दिया गया कि नहीं हम जैसे हैं वैसे रहने दे. एंड आई थिंक maybe this is one of the reasons we survived as Hindus. I had been contemplating, in fact I have spoken about this to a close friend of mine, that all the pre-Abrahamic societies got destroyed. They did not have a rigid caste system, I guess, at least not that it's accused by Marxists. So if I take Marxist history into account, and that none of them had caste system, they were such nice people and they all got demolished and we had a caste system and we mysteriously survive, maybe then there is some causality here, or it may be a correlation, who knows. But Sheldon Pollock seems to think that casteism saved India or saved Hindus. And I'm doing a video on Manusmriti and now I'm saying this. No, I'm not saying this, I'm not defending this, guys. I think it may have been one of the reasons. Okay. Meenakshi Jain is saying, to describe such works, such Sanskrit works as repetitive, lacking in originality and reflective of an insular attitude, is but another instance of the Marxist lack of sync with this land. Now, Satish Chandra says, Amir Khusro took pride in being an Indian. Khusro's love for India shows that the Turkish ruling class was no longer prepared to behave as a foreign ruling class, and that the ground had been prepared for a cultural rapprochement between them and the Indians. Meenakshi Jain says, Amir Khusro pioneered a genre of writing called Epic of Conquest, which laid thematic emphasis on the glorification of the Turk against the Hindu, and highlighted the destiny of the Turk to hold the Hindu in subjugation. This is a quote from Khusro, and these quotes are in Sitaram Goel's book called Islam Vis-a-vis Hindu Temples, that thin book. Amir Khusro's work, like the Miftah al-Futu, the Khazan al-Futu, the Nu Sifir and Tughluqnama, are all full of religio-political fervor. He writes, for example, Happy Hindustan, the splendor of religion, where the Muslim holy law finds perfect honor and security. The strong men of Hind have been trodden underfoot and are ready to pay tribute. Islam is triumphant and idolatry is subdued. Aziz Ahmad says these things. And his assertive pride in his Indian origins has been linked to the tensions between the foreign and Indian Muslim nobles in the Sultanate period. Okay. Now Satish Chandra says, Sher Shah also patronized the learned men.
Some of the finest works in Hindi, such as the Padmavat of Malik Muhammad Jaisi, were completed during his reign. Sher Shah was not a bigot in the religious sphere, as is evident from his social and economic policy. Okay, this is where Satish Chandra falls into his own trap. Here he specifies that Sher Shah was not a bigot. हाँ, ये डिफेंस आ रहा है. नहीं नहीं, ये बिगट नहीं है. अभी तक तो नहीं आ रहा था. अभी तक तो एक्सप्लिसिटली ये डिफेंस नहीं देना पड़ा. तो क्या बाकी लोग बिगट थे इसलिए नहीं दे पाया, है ना? और नहीं तो शेर शाह इतना बड़ा बिगट था को इसके लिए बोलना भी पड़ा कि नहीं नहीं ये बिगट नहीं है. बाकियों को तो ऐसे ही ऊपर ऊपर से बोल रहा था, ऐसे डिफेंड करके चला जा रहा था. शेर शाह के लिए अलग से बोलना क्यों पड़ रहा है कि नहीं नहीं भाई ये बिगट नहीं है. Meenakshi Jain says, Malik Muhammad Jaisi lived in the Sharqi kingdom and received no patronage from Sher Shah, though he did write in appreciation of the Sur ruler. Sher Shah imposed the jizya, favored Afghans in appointments, and was ruthless in his dealings with the Rajputs of Ryzen, who were either put to sword or trampled to death by elephants. Badauni places the number of such victims at 10,000. Badauni is their own historian. Now Satish Chandra says, Akbar's Rajput policy was combined with a policy of broad religious toleration, the Chittor of the Ghazi of Chittor. In 1564, he abolished the jizya, which was sometimes used by the ulema to humiliate non-Muslims. He had earlier abolished the pilgrim tax, हमने तो देखा है जोधा अकबर फिल्म में, and the practice of forcible conversion of prisoners of war. अच्छा, तो अभी एडमिट कर रहा है सतीश चंद्रा कि प्रिजनर ऑफ वॉर्स के साथ फोर्स कन्वर्जन हो रहा था. अब तक नहीं बोला, अब जाके जो रोका उसको क्रेडिट दे रहा है, मगर बाकियों ने जो कर रहा था फोर्स कन्वर्जन ऑफ प्रिजनर्स ऑफ वॉर कि तुम अरेस्ट हो गए अब साला मुस्लिम बनो, तो अब तक ये बोला नहीं था. जिसने बंद किया उसको क्रेडिट दे रहा है, जिसने किया उसको ब्लेम नहीं करेगा. अगर ब्लेम करेगा भी तो तब पहले महाभारत में जाएगा कि नहीं नहीं महाभारत में भी ऐसा हुआ, ब्राह्मणों ने किया, ये सब बोलेगा. Observation, Meenakshi Jain says, Akbar made efforts to placate orthodox Muslim sentiment at least till around 1580. The Fathnama issued after the fall of Chittor express the intolerant attitude of the empire. Abul Qasim Namakin's Munsha Ati Namkin quotes Akbar as saying, as directed by the word of God, we, as far as it is within our power, remain busy in jihad, and owing to the kindness of the Supreme Lord, who is the promoter of our victories, we have succeeded in occupying a large number of forts and towns belonging to the infidels, and have established Islam there. With the help of our bloodthirsty sword, we have raised the signs of infidelity from their minds and have destroyed temples in those places and also all over Hindustan. खुद बोल रहा है ये जो रोडीज का मीम था ना कि तुझे पता नहीं तू मगर तू है. तो दिस इज द मार्क्सिस्ट नोशन ऑफ इस्लामिक इन्वेडर्स के नहीं नहीं तुझे पता नहीं तू सेक्युलर है मगर तू है सेक्युलर, मैं बोल रहा हूँ. Other evidence of orthodoxy includes a farman of Akbar, probably of this period, to Qazi Abdul Samad, the Mutasib of Bilgram, and other officials of the town. It says, to prevent the Hindus of that Pargana from practicing idol worship and take such steps as might help in eradicating the manifestations of heresy and deviation from that Pargana. Now Meenakshi Jain says, the reorganization of the Department of Sadarat in the 1570s was also dictated by the desire to increase Akbar's acceptance among greater sections of Muslims by extending state patronage to Indian Muslims and disregarding the distinction between the so-called learned and the illiterate. The Mazhar of 1579 was likewise an expression of Akbar's desire to be recognized as the sole head of Orthodox Muslims in India. Akbar's hostility to the Madhavis, attempts to deliver the Friday sermon, relations with Salim Chishti were all reflective of the same mindset. Khwaja mere khwaja, dil mein samaja. This policy changed around 1580 after the massive revolt in which Turani and Persian nobles participated. For details, see Iqtidar Alam Khan, The Nobility Under Akbar. Okay, this book is recommended. Now, a number of scholars have recognized that the date 1564 provided by Abul Fazl for the abolition of the jizya is incorrect, and Badauni's claim that the tax was revoked in 1579 is closer to truth. 1564 में नहीं हुआ, 1579 में हुआ. Abul Fazl's date does not match the conditions prevalent in 1564. The Gujarat campaign, for example, had not taken place, nor the siege of Chittor, or the suppression of the Afghan rebels in Bengal. This was also the period when the emperor maintained close ties with the Chishtis. Now, Satish Chandra also says, Akbar's Rajput policy was continued by his successors Jahangir and Shah Jahan. जो अच्छा relations था राजपूतों के साथ. Meenakshi Jain says, again misleading, after recalling Man Singh from the governorship of Bengal, Jahangir did not appoint any Rajput as Subedar. Shah Jahan appointed only 2 Rajputs as governors from a total of 152 such appointments made by him. A study of 172 appointments to the post of Faujdars made by Shah Jahan reveals that the Rajput share was a paltry 4. Similarly, only 14 of 86 appointees to the post of Kiladars, examined by scholars, were Rajputs. The position of Rajputs declined under Aurangzeb. In 1671, Jaswant Singh was appointed to the low post of Thanedar of Jamrud, while Ram Singh of Amber was dispatched to the east. Both were made to languish in these outposts for considerable periods. Aurangzeb also began to clamp down on promotions of Rajputs early in his reign. Unka promotion rukwa diya. Okay, let's check out some comments. If you have time to spare, read M.O. Mathai's work about Nehru family. Kabhi na kabhi, someday. Chinmay saying Al-Rawandi was influenced by Sankhya Vichar a lot and also wrote a book, Kitabul Zumurud, Destroying Prophetism, Abrahamism. I see. Abhay Agarwal, Pollock ko to Rajiv ne mast hoya tha. Do you know exactly what was the controversy about? तो पॉलक यहाँ पे तो बड़ी अच्छा चीज़ें बोल रहा है. And Harsh is saying, I am reading JSD's second book. Can you tell me in which chapter Mopla is covered? I can't remember. I don't think I've reached Mopla yet. Mopla is, I think, Unit 3 near the end. Ramchandra Pant was the Amatya of Shivaji Maharaj. Oh, I see. Yeah, I don't know anything about the Maratha Empire. Okay. I'll have to stop the live stream now, guys. I came a little early. If you guys are awake, I'll continue at 12 again like other days. Otherwise, I'll have to end it right now. Let's see. I'll check if you guys are online. I'll come. Otherwise, we'll do it tomorrow or maybe day after tomorrow. We'll have to see. A little unstable today because I didn't sleep today. Okay. Let's remember this page number. We did till page 37. So I'll see you guys in a while, hopefully probably at 12. Okay. Thank you for joining, guys.